Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. There's a man behind the cameras. His name is Mitch. He does a fine job, and thank you. We're going to talk about the Cub. We got updates to do. We're going to fire it up at the end of the video. We're looking for more subscribers. We want to get to 100,000. This is our 5th year of making videos. That shows some sort of a commitment, I feel. The Tiger Cub. I've been working on the Tiger Cub. I've been riding it a little bit. That's fun. We had a little bit of a problem with the breather filter on the crankcase vent. Remember, it was this little filter here was down here, and I made a little video of the oil coming out a bit. So added a tube, got the breather up high. That seems to fix the problem. I ordered a couple sets of rings off of eBay a couple nights ago. This is Hepalite, made in England, and I also ordered a set of Wellworthy. These are the Mile Master piston rings. So these are new old stock, obviously. How much did that cost? I got them from a couple different sources. One was including shipping. One was $60. The other one was $55. So for $115, I got a couple sets of rings that I can try. This bike smokes a lot. At the end of the video, we're going to fire it up. I was talking with some friends, and I can't remember what the rings were, but if they were a chrome ring and they didn't seat, that can be a problem, I'm told, in these older bikes. So when these rings come, I'm going to take it apart. I believe these are just regular cast iron rings. They don't last this long, but they seat much better. So you'll see how much smoke comes out. It can't be the valve guide. I don't think. There's just way too much smoke. So I think it's the ring. So that's another thing that's coming up. In the other videos, we had a fire up, and the bike didn't run very well. And what was going on, we decided, was at low throttle openings, the bike ran really rich. And no matter what we did, putting in a smaller main jet, needle jet, fooling with needles, nothing seemed to help. Some carbs just are made poorly. I think it was to do with the inside circuit. And you can't really change that. So this is the carb that I had so much trouble with. It looks fine. Now it's labeled NFG. And I got another carb off of Tom Miller. Thank you, Tom. And it looks exactly the same, but it's a stock carb off a Triumph 500 twin. So each of the cylinders is 250 cc's. This is a 200, but it's comparable. Put the carb on, it's so much better. It just sounds healthier. Sometimes it even idles. So I'm really glad to have that carb, because this one really is junk. Something else that was going on with the bike is that it's got a 9-to-1 piston in it, and it had a Kickstarter. I got this off eBay. It was like $80 or something US, but it's pretty short. And sometimes I couldn't kick it over. And I had friends who tried. They said, wow, that's got a lot of compression. Well, it's also the internal ratio that it goes through to turn the motor over. So I made a longer Kickstarter. You can see here, I just finished it couple days ago. It's 2 inches longer, so now I definitely have some more torque. And what I found out with the Kickstarter is that now I have a problem with the clutch. I didn't realize that the clutch had a slip to it, because when I rode it, when I started it on the rollers, I never noticed it. But kicking it, sometimes it kicks the motor over, and sometimes it just goes down. And I know that's the clutch slipping. So another thing to fix. Anyway, I want to show you how I made the Kickstarter. And I'll grab the piece of metal that it started out of. It's a nice piece of metal, 4140. Annealed. I got it off of Scott Stevens years ago. He used to have a machine shop, and he got left over when he sold the business. So I'll grab the piece of metal so you can see what I started with. It took about 4 days of work, and we're going to do a little slideshow. I started with this, and the reason I started with this is because you can see there's a center line, and then it comes out that far. So that was the right size that I should start with. It means that you have to take off a lot of metal, but that's okay. I'm in the lathe here now. So what I had to do, I thought about this at night. There was some nights where I couldn't sleep. This end part here has to be held in the chuck, in the lathe, and there's a centering hole on the other end for the live center. And then I have to machine down the middle. And then when it goes into the mill, I have to be able to locate it at a 90 because I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And those are at a 90 to each other, and the same up at this end here. So I needed extra on the ends so I could hold it, because a machinist always needs to hold it. So I machined down quite a bit. I ended up putting on a taper of, I think, 1 degree. It was 1 degree, so I had to set the compound at 1 degree. And then I held it in the mill. I've got these long flat bars there. And what I'm doing here, I'm machining a flat on the top and the bottom, because this is not round. I want this to be oval. So that's the first step in making that middle part oval. See, there's a flat there. I took off about 100 thou. I've got a flat on both sides. Now what I'm doing is I'm milling for this part here and taking off metal. I got to bring it down to that size. Now the next a tricky bit is there's a relationship in between the hole where it goes onto the kickstart shaft and the hole for the cotter pin. So what I did is I machined up a tube so that it fits in there nicely. And then I also machined something that I can hold in the chuck. So what I've done here, I've dialed up to the shaft so I know the center. And then I put in a 3/8 shaft, which is the size of the cotter pin, and then I move it so that this shaft goes down, and then on the digital readout, I read it out, and it was, I forget, like 530 thou from the center. Anyway, that's a crucial measurement, because the next step, I've got my Kickstarter in here, and I dial off the 3/8 shaft. I use a feeler gauge on each side so I can be more accurate, and then I bore the hole. So those two holes are the same a relationship as this. I actually moved the hole up about 5 thou because on this one, it's the cotter pin that goes in a little too far, and I had to use extra washers. So on the bike now, I don't have to use an extra washer. So moving the hole 5 thou made a little bit of a difference. It was either 5 thou or 7 thou, I can't remember. Now this is working on the top part here. I've got the flat milled. So rather than use a very small end mill, I drill a hole and then I go to the bandsaw. It's just easier. So that's what it looks like. I've cut it out. It's rough. And then I put it back in the mill. And that's where the flats come in handy. See, remember I machined those flats? I can locate it easily. I know it's perfectly flat. So I used a 1/4 inch carbide end mill, and I make it at the right depth and the right width so that the kickstart lever goes in. on the bandsaw now. I just rough cut it out. Then I go to my mill. I put the rotary table up on the deck, and I make a nice radius there. And that turned out fine. So I got both ends cut off. So now I need to be smoothing this, making it a nice shape. That took a little while. And then this is a certain height here. And the bolt doesn't actually hit. It leaves a little space there because it bottoms out on the shoulder down here. But I had to get that right, so I took a mill and mill. So there, you can see the two different kickstarters and the lengths. I need to make this look like that. What I had to do now was to drill the hole in the top. So I can't hold it down here because it's way too high and it's going to vibrate and move. So what I did is I'll actually grab the piece and you can see. I made this, and this goes on the side of the mill. It bolts on with 8mm Allen screws. Can you see this part here that I machined? Can you see how it goes up like that? So this acts as a stop for here. So that goes up like that. And then this bolts on like that. Oops. And there's not much space. So I had to use a 5mm Allen screw because anything else was too big. We've got to get an Allen wrench right here. So this goes up all the way. Then this holds it like that. And now, so it holds on the side of the mill. You'll see the photo. And then I center up to the hole. And again, what I did is after I centered to the hole, I moved the hole 5 or 7 thou closer so that hopefully the lever is a little bit like that and not like that, because then your foot can slip off. So that's basically what I did. So after I had this one dialed up, I put my lever on here, drilled the hole, and started the thread. On a side note, our merchandise is 18% off. It's a great time to buy. So here we are. This is way down there. See, it's on the side of the mill table. So I have to bring the arm over, pull the arm out, and that's what it looks like. That is that sitting on the side of the table. And then after I did that, I turned this around and I used an end mill, and I took a red Sharpie and I scribed a circle. And so I went down with the end mill. I was plunging down, and then I did filing. I filed it a nice radius. This is the hole that holds the spring and the ball bearing, so that the Kickstarter lever, when you pull it up, it locks and it doesn't want to just move around. So I located it, drilled the hole. It's got to go down a certain depth, otherwise the spring is too strong. Now I had to bend it, so I held it in the vise here. I got out my big torch. It's a number 4 tip, and I heated it up and I bent it out. I took a measurement, and that seemed to work fine. And then how you put the cotter pin, it determines the angle. If you put it in from one side, you get this angle. And then see how it comes back now? That's because I put the cotter pin in from the other side. So this is actually better because it gives me more room for my leg. And my leg just comes down like that. It doesn't touch. I got 40 miles on the bike. I go out for a ride. I come back. I check for oil leaks and other things. That's the lowdown on how I made the Kickstarter. It was about 4 days work, but it turned out okay? You can see here when I press down, because I got space here, right? But what I had to do was to move I didn't want this to come out anymore. But then there's a consideration here. See that? Oh, it's so close. Look at that. It's actually kind of touching. Well, it didn't make a mark yet, but it's very, very close. So what I have to do is I have to knock that in a little bit. I took a wooden block and a big plastic hammer, and I also bent this a little bit in the vise. Let's see if I can move that, and I'll show you how I move it. This is how we move things. So what I'm doing is I'm watching right here because I can see the gap, and that kind of tells me how far. Didn't seem to move much, but we'll check here again. Now it's got compression. There you go. Okay, so I got, what is that? Almost an eighth. As long as it doesn't touch, that's okay. And up here I got lots of room, so that was my considerations. All right, so I'm gonna use the rollers outside, and we'll fire it up, and you'll hear what it sounds like. It sounds way better than before, and you'll also see how much smoke is coming out the back. It's kind of unacceptable, but new rings are on the way. Way too much smoke. It's even idling now. Very nice. I'm happy with my bike. I just need to fix a few things. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. Mitch and I like coffees. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time.